Hello and welcome back to another Exos Heroes video. And today we'll be doing another tier list for Fated Heroes, and this time will be the Fated Supports. And before we jump too much into the tier list, let's go over the definitions for how we're defining these tiers. So obviously we're starting out with S and A tiers. S tiers are the heroes that we consider to be consistently strong across all facets of the game or game-changingly strong at a specific role. And these are typically heroes that are very much self-sufficient. They can do what they're meant to do at a very high level by themselves. The A tiers are just slightly below the S tiers, and I think from a functional perspective they're very similar. Both are very good at most parts of the game. What A tier tend to have is they tend to have a little bit more dependencies on synergies with other heroes, whether they're S tier or A tier. So that would definitely make them just a little bit worse. B and C are a step below. Those are very similar. They're typically relatively average heroes. They can be used in most areas of the game, or they're situationally top tier in certain specific area of the game. However, what you will see is with B tier heroes, they tend to still be able to have a place in some of the late game team comps, where C heroes tend to fall out of favor quite substantially. And obviously we have D and F tiers. D tiers tend to be the ones that are very mediocre. These are heroes that can offer a little bit of utility in the earlier games, but tend to be interchangeable throughout, early to mid game, and tend to be interchangeable with other legendary heroes as well. And F tiers, so far, the only hero that we've ever ranked as F tier is Rakan, and we just don't think F tier heroes have any place in the game today. They're either heroes that doesn't offer too much in terms of what they can bring, or simply, have a unique set that doesn't have a place in today's meta. Hero that might have potential, but today, if you get them, they're just not going to offer you anything. But with that being said, I think today, looking at the Fated support heroes, we don't have to worry about F tier. But I do think, there are a couple of heroes that might be on the D or C tier that we want to point out. So why don't we start off from the bottom of the list here?
Sure. So, as you could see from the just general list, we are actually pretty different in opinion here. You've got some more C ranks, I've got some more A ranks, and I think that I was a little bit more gracious and kind in my rankings. But for last place, we both have Shell. I'm really sad to say this because I love Shell as a concept, right? I think her design is great, and just this idea of like a puppet master, and just her kit as well. She's got her A1, which is an attack buff, single target attack buff of 20% of her attack, and then she's got her A2, which if she's paired with Jinai, can give the hallucinate debuff to all of the enemies that it hits. So when you look at her kit with the Jinai synergy, it's not that bad. When you look at her kit alone, it becomes really underwhelming. Being a support hero, her base attack is not that high compared to other Fated heroes in other attacker or chaos tiers. And so when you buff someone, just one person for 20% of your low base attack, it's not that much. And I feel like unless she gets maybe a little bit of a numbers buff or they rework her kit a little bit, she's always going to stay at the bottom here because the meta is just not very favorable for these long setup kind of buffing support heroes currently. So that's why I have her as C.
Yeah. And, I have her last place as well. I have her as D because I really don't think she offers a lot in today's meta. And I think, we'll see that with a couple of champions here. And it's not so much that these heroes are bad, but more so I think it speaks to the fact that we have a
stale meta.
Exactly, right. It's very stale. It's very focused about, having these first guardian heroes. And I think Shell, like you said, I really like her concept. Her A1 is kind of a very efficient mana transfer. It costs 1 mana, and then she gives 1 mana to an ally, right? And alongside of an attack buff. I think that skill itself is not bad. Like you mentioned, her attack isn't high, so the fact that it's based on 22% of her own attack, I think that's kind of weak. One buff I would like to see is maybe just a straight up 22% increase to the target's attack, right? So if that's like a Rachel or a Bathory, right? That would be a lot more substantial. And her A2, I like the idea of A2 being able to, decrease the opponent's hit by 30, right? Really makes them miss their attacks. Another way to kind of sustain your team without directly giving them HP or shield. Right. I think that's very unique, and there's a place But the fact that it's gated behind her synergy with Jinai, it makes it very situational. Why not just take away that synergy and just make it a straight, let's say even if just do an AoE minus 20 hit, right? But without the Jinai synergy, I think that would be a lot better. So I think today, one is she doesn't really fit into the meta. I think that's okay because I think meta will eventually change. But at the same time, I think both of her skills conceptually are fun and interesting, are good. But there's just something about it I feel like the devs didn't think through.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, and I feel like, her kit seems to me like more of a PvP focused kit. Like, hey, I'm gonna make it really frustrating for the enemy team, and I'm going to just buff up like maybe 1 or 2 attackers, strong attackers on my team to like sweep them. But like you said, it's just not enough, and I think the changes that you mentioned would be great, like really, really nice. They could probably bump her, in my opinion, up to like maybe an high B, if they had those changes. But just her current state, I don't think she really fits in anywhere. And
sure.
Like C rank or like you said D rank, she is mediocre and will be swapped out in that late game content. But why don't we go ahead and talk about our next hero? So again, this is the same hero for both of us on number 4, but we gave her different ranks. You have C and I have B for Emma.
Yeah, and I think Emma, I really see her in a similar place with Shell. I think her A1 is good. Her A1 only costs 1 mana and does 300% damage. It's pretty good, and if you have another hero that can provide your front line with a permanent 1 mana like Breath of Mana passive that Bathory and Garth has, it's pretty good, right? She can essentially replace her auto attack with her A1 and do decent amount of damage. She also has her A2 allowing her to decrease the opponent's attack by 55%, but 55% of her own attack. And again, as a support hero, that just seems weak. Like, I can see it being 35% of the opponent's attack straight up. That would be probably more than 50% of Emma's attack. So I don't think that synergy there is very good. I think there definitely needs to be a little bit of tweak to make her skills a little bit better. Again, conceptually it sounds great, but I think functionally there's something missing there. She does have the Head Dragon Knight passive, which I like. I think the combination of that alongside of her attack debuff definitely makes her one of the better options for the Holy Dragon Grounds. But other than that, I don't see her being very useful in other areas of the game. That's why I'm only giving her a C. I see you have her as a B.
Right, so my rationale behind that is really, you covered her kit pretty well, and it's just, I guess I gave those same points just more value, right? Specifically the attack debuff on her A2 and her Head Dragon Knight passive. I think that allows her to, as the B rank dictates, excel in one certain area of the game. And obviously that's Holy Dragon Grounds here. Now, we do have Emma, and we recently picked up her Fate Core as well. And consistently, as we have been doing Holy Dragon Grounds, especially on those darkness days where she is darkness element, so it helps break Guardian Stones. But we've consistently brought her along because of this utility that she provides through her Head Dragon Knight passive and that attack debuff. So I think that through our own anecdotal practice, we have seen that she has a use there, and that's why I ranked her as B. Now, of course, there are other heroes with Head Dragon Knight passive, like I believe Talia does, Mahar, and maybe not Mahar. I don't think Mahar is like a better choice to bring in because I have my own gripes with him. But maybe someone like Talia, if you have her, would sort of take that place because you don't need 2 and the passives don't stack. So I mean, that's why she's number 4 on the list. I gave her a B rank to be nice.
And I would like to just add one other thing since you brought it up. Emma has arguably the worst Fate Core in the entire game.
I wouldn't say worst.
It doesn't do anything other than quote-unquote buffing her A1.
Right.
So it increases her damage from 300% to 525.
Right.
Which you would think, oh, that's great. But it also increases her mana cost from 1 mana, which is very spammable, to 3 mana. And I feel like it just counterintuitive in that sense. And giving Emma's, element as a darkness element, which in my opinion is not one of the best when it comes to mana generation.
Right.
I really don't like that combination. I'd rather see it just as, maybe 50% damage increase with the same mana cost. Like anything but to increase the mana cost is what I would love to see. And obviously the Fate Core doesn't offer anything beyond that. So yeah, I don't know what the devs were thinking.
Right. I mean, I think that to elucidate a little bit more on that A1 change, first of all, it's less mana efficient. Like,
Right.
for every mana per percent damage you're doing, it's worse than her
Yeah.
base kit. There is one silver lining on this cloud, which is it sort of helps Emma maybe transition into like a burstier kind of character, where like if you don't have burst already in your team, then she could sort of supplement that in with her A1. Unfortunately, like we already mentioned, being a support hero, her attack's not very high, so if you do percent damage based on your base attack,
Right.
she's still not going to be as bursty as, you know, other attack champions like maybe a
Exactly.
Rachel or a Jin.
Yeah. And then next up we have Ramge. At this point we don't know anymore, but both of us have him ranked third among the 5. And again, you gave him an A, where I gave him C.
Right, that's significant.
So, yeah, that's quite a big difference. So why don't we talk a little bit about that?
Sure, so for me, I gave him an A for a couple of reasons, or rather 3 reasons. The first being something that's inherent to all iterations of Ramge, and we're just going to go with that pronunciation for this video until someone corrects us. But he has anti-heal,
Right.
and he is one of the only or very few
Right.
champions in the game that have anti-heal. And so I think that becomes his niche, right? You look at a lot of the other Fated support heroes, especially in the upper tier like Anastasia, Talia, and a lot of their kit relies on healing, right? So when you have a support that's like, hey, you can't do any of that, it's not cleansable, you just cannot heal, right? I think that really gives Ramge like a lot of utility. He's the only Fated hero that has it.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for somebody that's a bit beefier, a bit stronger, but also provides this utility, he's your only choice. And so that's one thing that I think is really important about him. Other than that, he also has synergy with Shufraken, who's a very strong defender, Fated. So, you know, if you have both of them, he just gets a little bit more added value through that. And then the last thing is he's got 2 Fate cores. And I think both of these are relatively decent. Obviously, one of them, the more recent one, is First Guardians, which we've talked about so many times before with the Dragon Blood passive, the Great One, Wrath, and Dragon Scale. It's just a bunch of very strong passives on a hero like Ramge, where he's in the front line and will therefore grant it to all of these defenders and other supporters that you're going to be hitting just naturally throughout the course of a fight. So I think that being one of the few frontline First Guardians gives him a little bit of added value as well compared to the others.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you just mentioned, and I am willing to move him to an A rank if the meta is different. And this is the thing, again, that I always come back to, is the fact that I feel like he has a very unique kit. And the fact, you know, like you said, he's doing anti-heal, all these debuff, very, very interesting. But in today's situation, I think healing isn't the primary source of support, rather it's
Right.
shielding, right? Like, and especially because, again, it's dominated by First Guardian Fate cores that are just providing these shields through the Dragon Scale. So you're really not going to use the anti-healing all that often, right? You're more relying on being able to do damage and just break through the shield. I think that's really the bane of Ramge, is the fact that the game today does not allow him to really utilize everything that he has to offer. He has a fantastic kit that has a lot of interesting elements to it, similar to Shell and Emma as well, I think. But today, like, you're just not going to ever utilize those because you're up against heroes that are on their shields all the time, and they don't care whether you have anti-heal or not, because they're
Right.
not really healing that much, right? So I think that is the biggest issue. He definitely has an A potential, you know, like everything you mentioned with the synergy, with the Fate core, but we'll have to see. I think one day he might get to shine, but I don't think now's the time.
Right. I mean, like you said, you might be willing to bump him up to an A rank. I think that I can come down to a B and you can come up to a B, and then we could just sort of agree that that's kind of where he is right now across all aspects of the game. With PvP specifically, I would say that he's definitely lower ranked just because, you know, of all the First Guardians right now. And even if they're not First Guardians, it's going to be, you know, an FC Rira or an FC Jin, like the Banga family. Right?
Yeah.
So he just doesn't have a lot of opportunity to shine there. I agree.
Right. I would say in the Colosseum for, you know, the very end game players, that maybe you have a little bit more utility with FC Ramge, because obviously, you know, his anti-heal might be able to function in places like that, but obviously, you know, that's just one very small
Niche,
portion of the game. So yeah, it doesn't really justify, in my opinion, a higher rating. But the top 2 are great though, right? So maybe let's start with our number 2, Talia. Both of us, we agree on Talia is A tier Fated healer. And in my opinion, Talia is kind of the better of the two when it comes to a pure support, because that's really what she is all about. Both of her skills are healing skills. One of them is AoE, and one thing that makes her, in my opinion, a little bit more versatile than, let's say, Kaya is the fact that both of her skills not only heal but also do damage at the same time. So you have this balance between you're able to use her to kind of break the Guardian Stones, at the same time heal up your team, so you don't have to sacrifice anything. So I think that balance between healing and damage is really, really crucial here. And obviously she also has the first aid passive, as well as having the cleanse on both of her skills as well. It just makes her kind of an all-encompassing support hero that you might need.
Right, so I want to paint a picture for you guys right now. I'm sure all of us have done this. We went to the store, came back with groceries, and your car is just full of them, right? You've got like some milk, you got some eggs, you got some bread. And then now let's imagine these things as different aspects of the game: healing, cleanse, and damage. Okay? You want to try to get into the house in one trip. You want to carry all of your bags at once. And that's literally what Talia does. She is your do-everything hero. She'll take your healing, she'll take your cleansing, and she'll take your damage, and wrap it all up into one cohesive kit. She's also got single target on her A1 and AoE on her A2. So she's just so versatile, and to top it all off, she's got the Head Dragon Knight passive, which makes her useful in that content as well. And especially because when you're fighting Dragon, you have a 10-man roster. There's no frontline, backline, everybody gets treated equally, and Talia heals on her A2 everybody. So, I mean, she just brings so much utility in Holy Dragon Ground specifically, but even outside of that, I think that she does have a place in PvP. Yeah. She's not a specialist by any means, like just due to how generic and overarching her kit is, but you know, she's definitely not a bad hero to bring if you're just trying to climb the ranks casually.
Oh, for sure.
At top tiers, I think because she lacks that specialization and she doesn't have, you know, the Fate Core or synergies that other heroes have, she doesn't have that last bit of value to really push her into that S rank.
Yeah. But talking about that last bit of value that pushed someone into the S rank, obviously there's Anastasia. And I think it's quite clear that Anastasia is probably one of the top 2 healers in the game. The other one, in my opinion, being the rare Kaya. But I think what Anastasia brings is, again, this kind of a do-everything type of kit. She has very good skill in terms of, you know, A1 healing with the ability to heal quite substantial amount of damage. At the same time, her A2 brings a very respectable amount of damage for a support hero. So there you can see she does a little bit of everything. And obviously, she also has the first Guardian Fate Core, which is very strong as well. And I think that's really ascends her above what Talia can offer, is that unique Fate Core with all that comes with it. So I think, in my opinion, Anastasia is clearly the top tier support among the 5 that we're looking at right now.
I mean, I agree. Like, you could see that I also have her number 1 S rank, and it's for very much of the same reasons. I look at Anastasia as more of like a compartmentalized Talia, where Talia has 2 skills, AoE, single target, and they just do everything: healing, cleanse, damage, like we talked about. Anastasia's more like, I have 1 skill that does damage, and it does a lot of damage, and I have 1 skill that heals a lot, and it heals a lot, right? And I think that this sort of specialization, again, makes her more useful in PvP content. Absolutely. Where you want somebody to have that burst, where you want somebody to have that immediate value, immediate effect on the flow of the game.
Right.
And so I think that that's one thing that sets Anastasia apart. And of course, like you mentioned, the first Guardian Fate Core, super strong on everybody that has it.
Yeah.
And I think one interesting thing is, because Anastasia, along with Ramge, are the 2 support heroes that have it, they could utilize it in the front line. Now, like you said, Ramge's anti-heal not very useful in PvP, but Anastasia's heal is very useful. Yeah. And especially if she's paired with somebody like Garf or Ulum or Shufraken, another beefy frontliner, right? And then she gives them the Dragon's Blood buff, it just makes them very difficult to deal with. And I think that that's just a synergy that shouldn't be overlooked with defenders in general when she's in her Fate Core form.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that wraps up our tier list for today. Just a quick recap: obviously, in our opinion, Shell, Emma, Ramge are all unique heroes with very interesting kits, but given today's meta, we don't really think they have much of a role currently especially with Xiao. We think there are quite a few things that really needs to be changed about her to really make her a viable hero. But obviously we have Talia and Anastasia that we really think are very, very good heroes for anyone to build them. Talia may be more kind of a new player friendly, where Anastasia, with her Fate Core, with her compartmentalized A1 and A2s, can really be that shining star of your support lineup for quite a while. So if you guys have a different opinion on these heroes, please let us know in the comment section down below. And if you guys want to see other Fated tier lists, we have Fated tier lists on Attack Heroes, Defenders, and Chaos Heroes already out there, so feel free to check those out. And we also have a lot of other Exos hero related guides and reviews, so feel free to check those out as well. And lastly, if you enjoyed today's episode, if you found it informative, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next video shortly.
Peace.